Hi, I'm John Rasmussen, and Leslie asked me to give a few impressions of the GA in Providence last week. First, it was big. As Arliss said, 4,750 attendees. Well, there were morning worship services every morning, reports of progress on action items and initiatives, and program presentations on a variety of issues. And then there were plenary sessions where the delegates got together to discuss and vote on action items and statements of immediate witness. And there were some really great inspirational speeches by many, but the ones that stuck out for me were by Peter Morales, Reverend Mark Stringer from Iowa, and a lot of others. There was a very moving Ware lecture by Sister Simone Campbell, the Nuns on the Bus woman. It was funny, she told about her starting organizing in the 5th grade in grade school. So these are all online, and I would recommend that at least check out Mark Stringer's speech and Sister Simone's. Providence was overrun by UUs. Everywhere in town, at restaurants and coffee shops and hotels, you'd see people kind of looking at your chest. So you got this habit, you know. Where are you from? You came all the way from California? So it was a lot of fun. For me personally, these annual gatherings of our UU delegations kind of lift spirit, kind of like giving your battery a new charge. And I'm sure you'll hear people who are a lot more substantive than me about what happens, but I think they have a lot of value to everyone, and I hope that all of you get a chance to go. Okay, now here comes the pitch. For those of you who might be thinking of next year's vacation schedule, Portland, Oregon is a wonderful place to visit. You might want to consider spending a few days in Portland as part of your vacation plans. By the way, the 2015 GA will be held there from June 24th to June 28th. If you are someone who has never attended a GA, you should go to your first one in Portland. It's right in our backyard. Leslie asked me to mention, as your denominational connections chairperson, a matter which is not related to GA. We are in the early stages of planning a congregational pilgrimage to Transylvania in September 2015. While plans are not yet firm, we envision Leslie leading us on a 8 to 10 day tour of historical Unitarian sites and a visit to our partner church in, help me, Erdos in Georgia. A 3-day trip extension in Budapest is also being considered. We will keep the congregation informed as plans develop. Thank you.
What stood out for me at GA? 5 days of rehearsals and singing in the General Assembly choir. What could be better than that? I was in awe of the mixing of 180 voices of UUs from Alaska to California, New York to Georgia, and so many places in between. One memorable moment for me was the Sunday morning service, the last day of GA, with some 4,000 plus UUs gathered together. During the hymns and during the sermon given by Reverend Mark Stringer, I felt an incredible connection and energy. Another memorable moment was on Sunday morning before the service, when the choir was gathered together in one of the long, narrow breezeways of the Dunkin' Donuts arena. The sounds of the choir warming up in this enclosed area gave me chills, with the harmonies echoing in a way I had never heard before. What went through my head was, wow, what just happened? Both of these moments to me are representative of what happens at GA and in life in general. Many unique individuals coming together that together can make up something even greater than the sum of its parts.
Well, I want to tell you something of the great diversity of programs and events that happened at the General Assembly. There is going to be a lot of information on the web, uua.org/GA. There'll be videos and there'll be minutes and information. There's now reports from the UU World, the magazine that you should be getting quarterly, and they're also online at uuworld.org. There were 156 workshops to choose from, so there were a lot of choices. One of the main events that got public notice was the business resolution that was passed, which divesting most of the UUA investments that are now in companies that produce fossil fuels, including oil, natural gas, and coal. The text, which was proposed after negotiations from a really wide variety of UU organizations, including the Committee on Social Responsibility Investing, the Investment Committee, the UU Ministry for Earth, as well as the UUA Administration and the Board of Trustees. That resulted in a long and complex resolution which had 10 whereas clauses and 9 be it resolved. It is available also online. I went to a workshop on emergency preparedness. It raised a lot of issues that I hadn't really thought about. Sean Smith is going to be heading a process to make us better prepared for emergencies. It involves training and planning rather than hardware and equipment, but it was a different kind of workshop, really informative. I also went to a workshop, as you might expect, on apps for churches. Interesting ideas about apps for phones and tablets that may improve the communications with congregation members and friends. Would you please raise your hand if you use Facebook? Okay, how many of you actually read the weekly MDUUC email? Roughly the same number. Well, the Communications Committee is looking at how we might improve our communications, particularly using these tools which apply to all of us, but especially to our younger members. One of the things that Arliss mentioned was the chance to meet UUs from various congregations and also from UU organizations in the display area particularly, but from around our denomination. I talked to people about publishing an article about our orchard development with the urban farmers, which will be in the Ministry for Earth newsletter and maybe in the UU World magazine.
I bring in now the words of Sue and Les Polgar. These are from the Celtic Lodge in Ingonish, Nova Scotia. Sue says, one of my favorite GA experiences is the service of the living tradition, beginning with the opening hymn, Rank by Rank, Again We Stand. The span of UU leadership is reflected in those marching to stand on the stage, ministers receiving preliminary fellowship to those ministers completing full-time services. Les and I especially cheered for Gina Lee Storen Adams and Andrew Carlson, ministers receiving final fellowship and both affiliated with our church. And the final portion of the service is a remembrance of ministers who have died in the past year. The future, present, and past of UU leadership come together in this moving service of the living tradition. And Les says, GA 2014 was a great experience. As it turned out, my highlights were about money. Or to be precise, about the people who make fundraising and stewardship at the UUA such a joy. Among the very top, the Reverend Terry Sweetser retired after many years of success as Vice President of Development. Terry taught us all about stewardship, and we will always be indebted to him. His colleague, Cam Archibald, was the brains behind the wonderful Over the Edge repelling fundraiser. The goal was $100,000. And how much did we actually raise for the UUA? Drum roll. $500,000. Cam negotiated and secured the multiple and prerequisite licenses and insurance that enabled us to hold this wonderful event where 80 brave souls went over the edge at the Rhode Island Civic Center. MDUUC was well represented with Reverend Leslie and another Leslie. Oh, that's me, he says, did this. As did our former member and ministerial alumna, Bonnie DeLotte. And I would add, our member, Patrice Curtis. And it was nice to see the program the President's Council began in 2009 to create a curriculum to raise awareness about money and its beneficial uses become the Wisdom Path. That wisdom has a $sign for the S. The Wisdom Path Adult RE program. It will be offered here later this year. All the best on this 4th of July from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. Les Polgar.
Well, by this time you have a pretty good idea of how exciting General Assembly can be. I mean, what's better than Sister Simone, the choir, as Aki mentioned, and 4,000 people singing these wonderful hymns. It was just, well, and of course I had a phrase, but it doesn't come out quite right, but I think Leslie is the repeller par excellence. But I don't know that that's the way I should be saying it, but that's what's in my mind, you know. But I want to tell you about a particular session that I went to, sponsored by the Journey Toward Wholeness Transformation Committee. I mean, whoever knew there was even such a committee? But they help the congregations develop energy centers that are on the cutting edge of becoming an anti-oppressive and multicultural faith community. Some amazingly creative ideas on community building and sharing the love by UU congregations are being tested throughout the country. Here's a sampling of these innovative centers. In Annapolis, Maryland, there's something called Awake Ministries. Coexist is how the Annapolis Church describes its center. It is a Tuesday evening, everybody welcome, worship service open to other congregations, as well as the unchurched, including youth and youth in detention. They offer a potluck, music, a sermon, short sermon, coaches to minister to personal growth needs, and discussion time. Next on their radar screen is developing community outreach social justice projects. In Boston, the Lucy Stone Cooperative is a multi-generational 11-bedroom cooperative home. They seek to live their values in an intentional housing community of spirituality, sustainability, and social change. The First UU San Diego Church has created a second sort of storefront campus in a diverse working class suburb with a contemporary worship service featuring Latino music. This is a model for diverse, as they describe it, a model for diverse growth based on what works and is sustainable. It takes UUism to where the people are. In Tulsa, what began as a soulful sundown service for the unchurched morphed into a relationship with a predominantly African American community. In 2012, they added a humanist service on Sunday mornings. The First Unitarian Church of San Jose has concentrated on a bilingual presence in their public face and in their publications. They engage in issues with particular relevance to the Latino community and have a weekly alabanzas service that is a mixture of Spanish and English. Now, the horrendous flood and equitable rebuilding in New Orleans was the catalyst for the Center for Ethical Living and Social Justice Renewal. That center invites the beloved community to return home with new eyes to see the impact of systemic oppressions in their communities and to work in solidarity toward collective liberation. And finally, in Carborough, North Carolina, the Energy Center is a missional community that gives life the shape of justice by actively building the world we dream about in places where UUism doesn't usually go, focusing on day-to-day social justice work. They are making religion coincident with life by applying UU principles to catalyze change in our lives and communities. The possibilities for sharing the love and thinking outside the box to care for all who share this planet are endless. May our imaginations and possibilities run rampant. So may it be.